My husband quietly divorced me months back, but kept sleeping in my bed to cover his debt. Then I won the $640 million lottery. When he tried to take half as my devoted spouse, he had no idea I had set a savage legal trap to ruin him. You want to know what true betrayal feels like? Imagine the man you've loved, trusted, and built a life with secretly divorcing you, then continuing to share your bed for months, all while meticulously plotting to steal everything you own. But then, destiny, or maybe just pure, unadulterated luck, drops a $640 million lottery ticket into your hands. And he, utterly clueless, walks right into the most brutal legal trap you could ever set. My name is Ava Turner, and I was 36 when my entire world dissolved in 3 excruciating seconds under the sterile hum of a corporate benefits office. The chair I sat in felt like scratchy gray sandpaper, reeking faintly of floor cleaner. Across from me, Janice, the HR coordinator, who usually had a bowl of peppermint candies on her desk, was typing away, a rhythmic clatter filling the silence. I was on my lunch break, my sandwich still waiting upstairs. Just doing something responsible, something mundane. Open enrollment had begun that morning, and I wanted to add Logan, my husband, to my premium health insurance. His freelance consulting work had been sporadic, so we decided over coffee that morning it made more sense for him to be on my policy. It's just a standard spousal add-on, I explained, glancing at my watch. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. I brought our marriage certificate, just in case, but the system should already have him as my emergency contact. Janice nodded, her eyes fixed on the dual monitors. Sure thing, Ava. Let me just pull up your profile. Turner, Ava. Okay. The typing continued for a moment, a staccato clacking. Then it just stopped. It didn't taper off, it just cut out completely. I looked up from my phone. Janice was squinting at the screen, her head tilted to the side. She clicked her mouse once, then twice, then sat back. Her brow furrowed in genuine confusion. Is the system down? I asked. No, Janice said slowly. She looked at me, then back at the screen, then back at me. Her expression shifted from confusion to a distinct, professional pity that made the hair on my arms stand straight up. Ava, I can't add a spouse to your plan. I laughed. It was a short, dry sound. Why? Is there a waiting period? We've been married for 5 years. No, Janice said. She lowered her voice, even though the cubicle farm was mostly empty. The system has you flagged as single. That's a mistake. I blurted, my voice rising. I'm married. Logan and I had breakfast together 2 hours ago. Janice turned the monitor slightly away from me, a defensive posture. The system updates automatically from the state records database. It happens in real time now, to prevent fraud. It says your status is single because of a finalized divorce decree. The air left the room. It felt like the ventilation system had suddenly sucked out all the oxygen. Excuse me. You are divorced, Ava, Janice said, her voice gentle but firm, as if breaking the news of a terminal illness. It says the decree was finalized 7 months ago. Print it, I commanded. My voice sounded strange, hollow, like it was coming from someone else standing in the doorway. Print everything you see on that screen. Janice hesitated, then nodded. The laser printer in the corner whirred to life. She handed me a stack of warm paper. I snatched it, my eyes scanning past the headers, past the legal jargon, straight to the dates and signatures. There it was. Decree of Dissolution of Marriage, dated October 14th of last year. My eyes dropped to the bottom of the page. There was Logan's signature, loops large and confident, and right next to it was mine. I stared at the name Ava Turner, written in blue ink. It wasn't a forgery that looked like a child's attempt. It was my signature. It had the slight slant to the right, the way I crossed the capital, the sharp tail on there. It looked exactly like the signature I'd put on the sign-in sheet when I walked into this office 10 minutes ago. This isn't real, I whispered. It's a certified digital copy, Janice said softly. I'm so sorry, Ava. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't take my marriage certificate back from the desk. I stood up, clutching the warm papers that declared I was a single woman, and walked out. I moved through the lobby like I was walking underwater. People were talking, phones were ringing, the elevator dinged, but it all sounded muffled, distant. My body felt weightless and heavy at the same time, a numbness that started in my fingertips and worked its way into my chest. 7 months. 7 months ago was October. We had gone to the apple orchard in October. We had hosted Thanksgiving for his parents in November. We had exchanged Christmas gifts. We had slept in the same king-sized bed, under the same down comforter, every single night. I pushed through the revolving doors and out into the parking lot. The sun was shining, which felt insulting. I sat in my car, the leather hot against my legs, and stared at the steering wheel. I pulled my phone out. My hands weren't shaking. They were perfectly still, which scared me more than tremors would have. I dialed Logan. It rang once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Hey, this is Logan. Leave a message. I hung up and dialed again. 4 rings. Voicemail. I dialed a 3rd time. This time, he declined the call. A second later, a text message popped up on my screen. Can't talk right now, babe. Stuck with a difficult client. Talk tonight, babe. He called me babe while I held a piece of paper that said he had legally divorced me over half a year ago. I didn't reply. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat. I didn't go back to work. I started the engine and drove. I didn't drive home. I drove straight to the county clerk's office of records. The drive was a blur of highway signs and red tail lights. My mind was racing, trying to find a logical explanation. Identity theft, a clerical error, a prank, but the signature haunted me. It was too perfect. The records office was a grim building that smelled of dust and old coffee. I waited in line for 40 minutes, standing behind a man trying to register a business name. When I finally reached the glass partition, I slammed the printout from my office onto the counter. I need the full file for this case number, I said to the clerk. Hard copy. Everything you have. The clerk, a woman who looked like she'd seen everything and was impressed by none of it, typed the number in slowly. That'll be $20 for copying fees. I paid with a credit card that I suddenly realized might not even be valid if our assets had been split. 10 minutes later, she handed me a thick manila envelope. I took it to a wooden bench in the hallway, away from the prying eyes of the line. I opened it. I flipped past the cover sheet. There were financial disclosures, waivers of spousal support, asset division agreements that gave him the truck and me the house, on paper at least. And on every single page, there was my signature. But then I saw the notary stamp. State of New York, County of Westchester, commission expires 2026. And below that, 2 witness signatures, names I didn't recognize. I flipped to the affidavit of service. It claimed I had been served the papers in person on September 1st. I checked the calendar on my phone, scrolling back. September 1st? We were in Cabo. We were on our anniversary trip. I wasn't even in the country, let alone standing in our driveway accepting legal documents. You're lying, I hissed at the paper. But then I noticed something else. Something small. The header on the court documents. Usually divorces in our area went through the main family court downtown. The address listed here was for a satellite courthouse 3 towns over, a place I had never been to. It was a jurisdiction known for what lawyers called a rocket docket, processing uncontested filings with minimal oversight and maximum speed. It was not a mistake. It was not a glitch. Someone had walked these papers into a specific court, paid a specific filing fee, and used a specific notary to bypass the fact that the wife was not actually present. Logan hadn't just divorced me, he had erased me. I sat on that hard wooden bench, the cold reality settling into my bones. The man who had kissed me goodbye this morning, who had complained about the coffee being too weak, who had texted me that he was busy with a client, that man was not my husband. He was a stranger who had been squatting in my life for 7 months, waiting for the right moment to leave. I looked at the text message again. Talk tonight. Oh, we will talk, I whispered to the empty hallway. I put the papers back in the envelope. The numbness was gone. In its place was something cold, sharp, and terrifyingly clear. I stood up and walked out of the courthouse. I had a lot of work to do before he came home. Jillian Hart's office was exactly like her. Expensive, minimalist, and terrifyingly sharp. We hadn't spoken much since college, mostly just likes on social media and the occasional birthday text. But she was the only person I trusted to handle a disaster of this magnitude. She was a divorce attorney who had earned a reputation in the city for being a shark in a skirt suit. I sat across from her glass desk, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to stop them from trembling. Jillian didn't offer me tea or sympathy. She just pulled the thick file I had stolen from the records office toward her and began to read. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the sound of pages turning and the distant hum of city traffic 30 floors down. After what felt like an hour, but was likely only 10 minutes, Jillian closed the folder. She took off her reading glasses and looked me dead in the eye. "It's a forgery," she said. Her voice was flat, devoid of the shock I was feeling. "But it looks exactly like my signature," I said, my voice cracking. "Jillian," I stared at it in the car for 20 minutes. "The slant of the letters, the pressure points, it's my hand." "It's a tracing," she corrected me, leaning forward. "Or a digital replication printed with a high-quality wet ink machine, but it's a forgery. Look at the document dates. You said you were in Cabo on September 1st. This affidavit of service says you were served at your front door at 4 in the afternoon. Unless you have a twin or the ability to teleport, this is fraud." She tapped her manicured fingernail on the paper. "This is what we call sewer service in the industry," Jillian explained. "The process server dumps the papers in the sewer or the trash, then signs an affidavit swearing they handed them to you. The court assumes the affidavit is true. You never show up because you never knew you were sued. The husband gets a default judgment. Done. But the notary," I argued, desperate to understand the mechanics of how my life had been dismantled. "There's a stamp. There are witnesses. Notaries are people, Ava. And people can be bought," Jillian said coldly. "Especially in that jurisdiction you mentioned, 3 towns over. That's not a coincidence. That creates distance. It minimizes the chance that you run into a bailiff you know, or a clerk who recognizes your name. This wasn't a sloppy mistake. This was an engineered exit." I felt bile rise in my throat. Why? That was the question screaming in my head all afternoon. Why go through all this trouble? If he wanted a divorce, he could have just asked for one. We don't have kids. We both work. It would have been messy, sure, but this is criminal. Jillian stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the skyline. "That's the question, isn't it? Men don't usually commit felonies just to avoid an awkward conversation. If he wanted to leave you for another woman, he would just file. The fact that he did this in secret, and that he's still living in your house, sleeping in your bed, pretending to be your husband, that suggests he's not trying to leave." "Not yet." She turned back to me. "He's trying to secure something, or he's trying to hide something. Usually, when I see a move like this, it's about assets. He's shielding himself from debt, or he's preparing to acquire something massive and doesn't want you to have a claim to it." "He's a consultant," I said. "He makes decent money, but nothing massive." "That you know of," Jillian countered. She walked back to her desk and sat down, her expression hardening. "Here's the hard part, Ava. You cannot go home and scream at him. You cannot throw these papers in his face." "I have to," I said, feeling the anger surge again. "He divorced me 7 months ago. I'm living with a fraud. If you confront him tonight, he will panic," Jillian warned. "He will destroy evidence. He will drain accounts. He will disappear. And you will be left with a piece of paper that says you have no rights to anything he's been doing for the last half year. You need to be smarter than him. So what do I do?" "You go home," Jillian said. "You cook dinner. You ask him how his day was. And you watch him. You watch him like he's a specimen in a jar. You find out what he's hiding. We need access to his finances, his emails, his location history. Once we know why he did this, we strike. But not a second before." I drove home in a daze. My hands gripped the steering wheel, so hard my knuckles turned white. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to pack his bags, to change the locks, to burn the house down. But Jillian's voice was in my head. Strategy, not emotion. I pulled into the driveway at 6:30. His car wasn't there yet. I let myself into the house. My house, I reminded myself, though legally I wasn't even sure anymore, and started making pasta. The domestic routine felt grotesque. Chopping onions felt like a lie. Boiling water felt like a performance. At 7:15, the garage door rumbled. My heart hammered against my ribs. I forced myself to take a deep breath. "You're an actress," I told myself. "You're playing the role of the oblivious wife." The door opened and Logan walked in. He looked exactly the same as he had that morning. Handsome, tired, his tie loosened. He dropped his briefcase by the door and smiled at me. "Hey, babe. Something smells good." The word babe hit me like a physical slap. I forced the corners of my mouth up. "Just pasta," I said. My voice sounded thin, but he didn't notice. "How was the client?" "Exhausting," Logan sighed, walking over to kiss me. I held my breath as he leaned in. His lips brushed my cheek, and there it was, underneath the smell of traffic and his usual cedarwood cologne. There was something else. A faint, sweet scent. Jasmine. Vanilla. It was expensive, floral, and definitely not mine. I pulled back, pretending to check the sauce. "You're late? Did the meeting run over?" "Yeah," he said, walking to the fridge to grab a beer. "We were at the office until 6. Then traffic was a nightmare coming out of downtown." Liar. Traffic was clear. I had checked the Maps app on my phone before he walked in. And if he had been at an office, he would smell like stale coffee and air conditioning, not fresh perfume. I watched him as he moved around the kitchen. I watched him in a way I never had before. I stopped looking at him with love and started looking at him with scrutiny. I noticed the way he placed his phone on the counter, screen down. Always screen down. I noticed that when he washed his hands, he was vigorous, scrubbing up to his wrists, as if trying to wash something off. I noticed that he didn't look me in the eye when he spoke. He looked at my forehead, or past my shoulder at the cabinets. "So," he said, taking a sip of beer, "did you get that insurance thing sorted out today?" My blood ran cold. He was testing me. He knew. He had to know that if I tried to add him, the system would flag it. He was fishing to see if I had discovered his secret. I turned the stove off, my back to him, so he couldn't see the panic in my eyes. "No," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The HR system was down for maintenance. Janice said she'd try again next week." "Ah, classic corporate inefficiency," Logan said. He sounded relieved. I could hear the tension leaving his voice. "Well, no rush. I'm healthy as a horse." We ate dinner in near silence. He scrolled on his phone while he ate, chuckling occasionally at something on the screen. Every time he laughed, I imagined him signing that divorce decree. I imagined him sitting in a lawyer's office, nodding as they explained how to trick me. After dinner, he went to shower. He took his phone into the bathroom with him. He had been doing that for months. I realized. I had always assumed he was just addicted to social media or checking sports scores. Now I knew better. When he came out, he smelled only of soap. The floral scent was gone, scrubbed away, just like our marriage. We got into bed at 10:30. He turned off the lamp on his side. "Good night, Ava," he mumbled. "Good night," I whispered. He fell asleep within 5 minutes. I lay there in the dark, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. The man sleeping 6 inches away from me was a predator. He had been living a double life, constructing a trap for me right under my nose. Jillian was right. I had missed too many signs: the guarded phone, the late nights, the vague explanations about work, the way he had stopped talking about our future. I had been so trusting, so comfortable in the life I thought we had built, that I had been blind. But I wasn't blind anymore. I rolled over slowly, careful not to wake him. I looked at his sleeping face in the moonlight. He looked peaceful. He thought he was safe. He thought he was the smartest person in the room. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. My mind was racing, cataloging everything I needed to do. I needed to find his passwords. I needed to track his car. I needed to find out who the woman with the jasmine perfume was. And most of all, I needed to know why he was still here. He had divorced me, but he had stayed. That meant he still needed me for something. And until I figured out what that was, I would play my part. I would be the good wife. I would cook his meals and wash his clothes and smile when he walked through the door. But I would be sharpening my knife the entire time. Saturday morning provided the opening I needed. Logan had put on his running gear, the expensive compression shorts, and the brand new sneakers that had never seen a speck of mud, and announced he was going for a long run along the river. He said he'd be gone for at least 2 hours. As soon as the front door clicked shut, the clock started ticking in my head. I didn't go to the window to watch him leave. I went straight to his home office. His silver laptop sat on the mahogany desk, pulsing with a faint white light. Sleeping, but not off. I opened the lid. The login screen stared back at me. Logan prided himself on being security conscious with his clients. But at home, arrogance made him sloppy. He assumed I would never pry. Or perhaps he just thought I was too stupid to guess. I typed in the 6 digits that made up his mother's birthday, April 12th, 1955. The screen unlocked instantly. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a physical thudding that felt loud enough to fill the silent room. I forced my fingers to stop trembling and navigated to the File Explorer. I started with the obvious. The Documents folder was a mess of spreadsheets and old proposals. I clicked into a folder labeled Tax 2025. Inside, there were subfolders, receipts, invoices, and one labeled Clients. I opened Clients. It was populated with names I recognized, businesses he actually consulted for. But at the bottom of the list, nestled between Kramer Logistics and Marison Tech, was a folder simply labeled Leases. That stopped me. Logan was a management consultant. He didn't deal in real estate. We owned our home, or at least I thought we did, and we had no rental properties. I clicked it. Inside was a single folder, hidden from the main view, its icon slightly faded to indicate it was a system hidden file he had manually toggled. It was titled LT Private. I double-clicked. The first file that caught my eye was a PDF titled Rivershore Key Lease Signed.pdf. Rivershore Key was the new luxury waterfront complex downtown. The kind of place where the lobby smelled like lemongrass and the rent cost more than most people's mortgage. I opened the document. It was a standard residential lease agreement for a 2-bedroom penthouse unit. The monthly rent was $4,500. The lease term had started 6 months ago. I scrolled down to the signature page. There was Logan's signature, the same confident loops I had seen on the divorce decree. And right next to it, on the line for co-tenant, was a name written in bubbly, artistic script. Sienna Vale. I froze. I knew that name. Everyone in the city under the age of 40 knew that name. Sienna Vale was a local lifestyle influencer. She was 24, blonde, and famous for posting photos of avocado toast and bikini shots by the marina. I had actually liked one of her posts a month ago, a picture of a sunset. Now I knew who had taken the photo. I closed the lease and went back to the folder. I needed more. I needed to see the bleeding. I opened his email client, but instead of his work email, I logged into the secondary Gmail account I found saved in the browser cache. The inbox was a graveyard of our marriage. I searched for the word conference. 3 weeks ago, Logan had told me he was going to a leadership summit in Chicago. I found the confirmation email for that date. It was not for a hotel in Chicago. It was for the Sapphire Resort in Cabo San Lucas. Reservation for 2. King Suite, Ocean View. I searched for invoice. A receipt from a high-end jeweler popped up. A diamond tennis bracelet. Purchased 2 days before Valentine's Day. Cost $6,000. I had received a slow cooker for Valentine's Day. The rage was a cold, sharp thing in my chest, but I pushed it down. I wasn't a wife right now. I was an investigator. I went back to the LT Private folder. There was one more file, a PDF that had been created only 10 days ago. Property Transfer Draft V2.pdf. I opened it, and the room seemed to tilt sideways. It was a quitclaim deed. The document detailed the transfer of ownership of our house, the house I had bought with my own inheritance money 2 years before I even met Logan, from Ava Turner and Logan Turner to an entity called Stonerist Holdings LLC. I quickly opened a new tab and searched the state business registry for Stonerist Holdings LLC. The registered agent was Logan Turner. The address was a P.O. box in the same town where he had filed the fake divorce. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was trying to steal my home. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the screen, then dialed Jillian immediately. It was Saturday, but she picked up on the first ring. "Tell me you're safe," she said. "I'm in his laptop," I said, my voice shaking with adrenaline. "Jillian, he has a draft to transfer the house to an LLC he controls. He has a lease with a woman named Sienna Vale. But the house, can he do that? Did you buy the house before the marriage?" Jillian asked sharply. "Yes, it's in my name. I added him to the deed after the wedding because he said it was important for building our family assets." "Okay, listen to me closely," Jillian said. "If he forged your signature on the divorce papers, he is planning to forge your signature on that quitclaim deed. If he files that document and transfers the title to his LLC, He can sell the house or borrow against it before you even know it's gone. You would be fighting to get your own house back from a shell company while he disappears with the equity. It's a classic asset stripping move. He's trying to bankrupt me, I whispered. He's trying to leave you with nothing but the dust, Jillian corrected. Ava, you need to copy everything. Not just the deed. Get the lease. Get the emails. Get the bank transfers. Especially anything that has a notary stamp or a signature. We need to prove a pattern of fraud, not just a one-time incident. I hung up and reached into my pocket for the USB drive I'd brought from work. I plugged it into the side of the laptop. My fingers flew across the trackpad. I didn't just drag and drop, I organized. Folder 1, Infidelity. I dropped in the lease with Sienna, the resort bookings, the jewelry receipts. Folder 2, Financial Fraud. I dropped in the Stonerist Holdings registration, the property transfer draft, and the tax returns that showed he was underreporting his income by 40%. Folder 3, The Notary. I found a scanned copy of a document titled Power of Attorney in the trash bin of the computer. I opened it. It granted Logan power of attorney over my finances. It was dated 6 months ago. It had my signature, and it had the stamp of the same notary from the divorce decree. He had been planning this for a long, long time. This wasn't a midlife crisis. This was a demolition project. The progress bar on the file transfer seemed to move in slow motion. 90%. 95%. I heard the garage door rumble beneath me. He was back early. Come on. I hissed at the screen. 99%. The sound of the door from the garage to the kitchen opening echoed through the house. Ava, you home? Logan's voice floated up the stairs. Complete. I yanked the USB drive out. I closed the windows on the screen. I cleared the recent documents history in the File Explorer. I shut the laptop lid exactly as I had found it. I slipped the USB drive into my bra, the cold metal pressing against my skin like a secret weapon. Up here! I called out. I forced my voice to sound casual, sleepy even. Just grabbing a book. I walked out of the office and met him on the landing. He was sweating, his face flushed from the run. Or maybe from whatever he had been doing with Sienna. Good run, I asked. Great, he panted, wiping his forehead with a towel. Cleared my head. You look nice. Going somewhere. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had drafted a document to steal the roof over my head. The man who had bought a $6,000 bracelet for a 24-year-old while I was clipping coupons for groceries. No, I said, smiling a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Just doing a little cleaning. I found some old things I need to get rid of. He didn't catch the double meaning. He just nodded and headed for the shower, leaving me standing there with the evidence of his crimes burning against my chest. I had the gun now. I just needed to wait for the right moment to pull the trigger. 2 days later, I sat in a booth at the back of a 24-hour diner that smelled of grease and sanitizer. It was the kind of place where nobody looked at anyone else, which made it perfect. Jillian was there, nursing a black coffee, and next to her sat Monica Reyes. Monica didn't look like the television version of a private investigator. She was a woman in her late 40s, with sharp features, hair pulled back in a severe bun, and a leather jacket that looked like it had seen a few fights. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She slid a tablet across the sticky table toward me. I've been on him for 48 hours, Monica said. Her voice was like gravel, rough and unpolished. He's not very careful for a guy living a double life. He thinks he's invisible. I looked down at the screen. The first photo was grainy but clear enough. It showed Logan standing outside a bistro in the trendy part of town. He was wearing the blue blazer I had bought him for his birthday. His hand was resting on the lower back of a woman, Sienna Vale. In the photo, she was laughing, her head thrown back. She looked radiant, expensive, and completely unburdened by the fact that she was dating a married man. Swipe, Monica commanded. I swiped. The next photo was taken through a shop window. It was a jewelry store. Not just any store, but the one where we had bought our wedding bands. Logan was holding up a ring, a large pear-shaped diamond, and Sienna was covering her mouth with her hands in mock surprise. He put a deposit down on that yesterday at 3 o'clock, Monica said. $5,000 cash. My stomach turned. We didn't have $5,000 in cash lying around. Our savings were tied up in mutual funds. That brings me to the next part, Monica said. She tapped the screen, closing the photos and opening a spreadsheet. I ran a deep dive on your joint accounts, the ones you can see and the ones you maybe don't look at closely enough. She pointed to a column of figures. He's not taking big chunks, Monica explained. If he transferred $10,000, the bank would flag it and you'd get paid. So, he's bleeding you dry by 1,000 cuts. Look at these grocery store charges. $300 here, $250 there. But look at the itemization. He's getting the maximum cash back every single time. I stared at the numbers. It was true. Every time he went to the grocery store, the gas station, or the pharmacy, he was pulling out $40 or $60 or $100 in cash. He's siphoning liquid cash to avoid a paper trail. Jillian added, her voice low. He takes the cash, deposits it into a separate account, or simply uses it to pay for things he doesn't want on the statement, like a deposit on an engagement ring. But why? I asked, looking between them. He makes good money. Why does he need to steal $40 at a gas station? Monica leaned in, her dark eyes serious. Because he's broke. Ava, your husband is drowning. She opened another file. It was a legal filing from a county I had never heard of. About a year ago, Logan tried to get into the house flipping game, Monica said. He partnered with a guy named Marcus Dean. Real shady character. They bought a dilapidated Victorian house, intending to renovate and sell it for double, but they ran into permit issues, mold, structural damage. The project stalled. I never knew about this, I whispered. Of course not, Monica said. He financed it with a hard money loan. High interest, short term. The loan came due 3 months ago. He defaulted. The lenders aren't the kind of people who send polite letters. They're threatening to sue him for breach of contract and fraud because he allegedly misrepresented his assets to get the loan. Jillian took over, her lawyer brain assembling the puzzle pieces. This explains the secret divorce. If he gets sued, or if he files for bankruptcy to clear his debt, he doesn't want your assets, the house, your retirement, your savings, to be seized to pay his creditors. By divorcing you secretly, he technically separated your assets from his. So, he did it to protect me? I asked. A tiny, foolish spark of hope flaring in her chest. Jillian shook her head, extinguishing it instantly. No. If he wanted to protect you, he would have told you. He would have put the assets in a trust. He did this so that he could control the narrative. But there's a darker possibility. If he transfers the house to his LLC and then declares bankruptcy, he might be trying to use your house as collateral to pay off his bad debt, leaving you homeless while he walks away clean. He's using you as a shield and a piggy bank, Monica said bluntly. And he's not done. She reached into her bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a credit report summary. I have a contact at the credit bureau, Monica said. I had them flag any new activity on your social security. This popped up this morning. I looked at the paper. It was a notification for a new credit card account opened with a major bank. The credit limit was $25,000. The applicant was Ava Turner. I didn't apply for this, I said, my voice trembling. It was opened 3 days ago, Monica said. The mailing address is a P.O. box in Rivershore, the same P.O. box Logan uses for his business. The world seemed to stop. Cheating was one thing. A secret divorce was another. But this was identity theft. This was a felony. He wasn't just spending our money. He was taking out debt in my name. He was planning to rack up $25,000 of debt, ruin my credit score, and leave me to deal with the collectors while he ran off to Santa. He crossed a line, I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. The trembling in my hands stopped. This is not a marriage dispute anymore, Jillian said. Her eyes narrowed. This is financial violence. He is systematically dismantling your future to save his own skin. I looked at the photo of him and seeing it again. He looked so happy. He looked like a man without a care in the world. And why shouldn't he be? He had a wife to pay his bills and a girlfriend to boost his ego. He thought he had pulled off the perfect crime. I pushed the photos back to Monica. I want everything. I told her. I want the dates of the cash withdrawals. I want the loan documents for the failed investment. I want the IP address used to apply for that credit card. I want a paper trail so thick he will choke on it. Monica nodded, a rare smile touching her lips. You got it. And Jillian, I said, turning to my friend, we need to lock it down. I don't care if it raises red flags for
इधर हो
him
या
anymore. I want my credit
खलेन हो
cards
या
in. I want alerts
ठपका
on every single account.
ठप खला
If he tries to buy a
उधर
pack
हो या
of gum with my
पीछे
name, I want to know about it.
ठप
We can do
इधर हो या
that, Jillian said. But once
ठप
we freeze the credit, he will know. The card will get declined.
इधर हो या
The game will change. Let it
इधर हो
change, I said.
ओ लला
He
लला
thinks he's playing chess
ओ
with a
लला
pawn. He's
यस
about to find out he's playing with
इधर
a
हो या मखला
queen.
तीस लला
I stood
तीन
up,
हो इधर
leaving the half-drunk coffee on the table. I felt a strange sensation settling over me. It wasn't fear, and it wasn't sadness. It was the cold, mechanical clarity of a soldier preparing for a siege. Logan had spent 7 months building a trap for me. He had no idea I was about to weld the door shut with him inside. I'm going to the bank, I said. And then I'm going to wait. Wait for what? Monica asked. For him to realize that the ATM is broken, I said.
Yes.
And that I'm the one who cut the cord.
it's
The gas gauge on my dashboard was screaming at me, a glowing orange light that matched the throbbing headache behind my eyes. It was Thursday, 3 days after the meeting with Monica, and I felt like I had been running a marathon in combat boots. I pulled into a brightly lit station off the highway, the kind with flickering fluorescent lights, and a smell that was equal parts gasoline and stale donuts. I stood at the pump, watching the numbers tick up. $50. $51. The air was cold, biting through my thin cardigan. When the nozzle clicked off, I went inside to buy a bottle of water. The clerk was a teenager who looked as bored as I felt. Above his head, a digital sign scrolled in red LEDs. Powerball jackpot. $640 million. I stared at it. It was an obscene amount of money. It was the kind of number that didn't feel real. It felt like a phone number. You want one? The clerk asked, popping his gum. Everyone's buying one. Tonight's the draw. I looked at the wrinkled $5 bill in my hand. Sure, I said. One quick pick. Why not? I shoved the slip of paper into the back pocket of my jeans and forgot about it before I even got back to the car. I didn't buy it with hope. I bought it because for 2 seconds, it was nice to imagine a life where my biggest problem was tax brackets, not a husband who was gaslighting me into poverty. 3 days passed. 3 days of watching Logan lie to my face. 3 days of pretending I didn't know about Sienna, the lease, or the credit card. On Sunday night, Logan was in the living room watching football. I was in the kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil. I saw the lottery ticket sitting on top of the microwave under a pile of mail I had neglected. I picked it up. I pulled my phone out and typed in the lottery website. My eyes moved from the screen to the paper. First number, 12. Match. Second number, 24. Match. Third number, 31. Match. My heart did not speed up. It stopped. It actually, physically stopped beating for a second. Fourth number, 45. Match. Fifth number, 52. Match. The Powerball, 8. I looked at the ticket. I looked at the phone. I refreshed the page. The numbers stayed the same. I didn't scream. I didn't jump up and down. I didn't feel a rush of euphoria. I felt terrified. A cold wave of nausea washed over me. I gripped the granite counter, so hard my fingernails scraped against the stone. $640 million. I looked toward the living room. I could see the back of Logan's head. He was cheering at the television. If I walked in there right now and showed him this ticket, everything would change. He would drop Sienna in a heartbeat. He would cry. He would tell me he loved me. He would stay. He would stay forever. And he would take half. The realization hit me like a physical blow. If we were still legally married, or if he could prove we were, this ticket was marital property. I snatched the ticket off the counter and shoved it inside my bra, right where I had hidden the USB drive days ago. My chest was becoming a vault for secrets that could destroy him. I walked into the pantry and closed the door. I sat on the floor, huddled between the bags of rice and the canned tomatoes, and dialed Jillian. It's Sunday night, Ava, she answered, her voice groggy. I have the ticket, I whispered. My voice sounded jagged, like broken glass. What ticket? A speeding ticket? Did he get another one? The lottery ticket, I said. The jackpot. The 600 million one. I have it. I won. Silence. Absolute dead silence on the line. Jillian, are you somewhere safe?
हेलीकॉप्टर नहीं आया
Her
मेरे को
voice was instantly awake, sharp and commanding. Is he near you?
नहीं
He's in the living room, I said.
ना बने
He doesn't know. Nobody knows. Good, Jillian said.
ना पे
Listen to me very carefully, Ava. Do not tell a soul. Do not tell your mother. Do not tell your sister. And under no circumstances to breathe a word of this to Logan. I'm scared, I admitted. If he finds out, Jillian cut in. He will contest the divorce. He will say the signature was forged, which we know it was, and he will argue that the divorce is invalid. He will claim he is still your lawful husband, and he will be entitled to 50% of that money. He forged a divorce to hide his debt, but he will burn that divorce decree to ashes to get your fortune. I felt the room spin. So what do I do? We need a trust, Jillian said. I'm going to call Diane Klein. She's the best financial forensic advisor in the state. We're going to set up a blind trust to claim the prize. Your name will never appear on the winner's list. But before we cash that ticket, we have to make sure Logan is gone. Legally, physically, and financially gone. He divorced me in October, I reminded her. The ticket was bought in May. Technically, I was single when I bought it. Technically. Yes, Jillian agreed. But because the divorce was fraudulent, it's vulnerable. We need him to ratify that divorce. We need him to sign a settlement agreement confirming the separation date was months ago and explicitly waiving rights to any future assets. We need to trap him in his own lie before he smells the money. He'll never sign if he knows I have this, I said. That's why we have to move now, Jillian said. We cannot wait for the credit card investigation. We cannot wait for the slow burn. We have to drop the hammer. We need to kick him out this week. I hung up and stood up. I walked out of the pantry. My legs felt shaky, but my mind was crystallizing. The fear was evaporating, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I looked at Logan again. He was drinking a beer, complaining about a referee's call. He looked small. He looked like a petty, grasping man who had spent the last year trying to manipulate me, trying to steal my house, trying to ruin my credit. He had sold me out for a lease on a condo and a 24-year-old influencer. He had valued our marriage at zero. I touched the spot on my chest where the ticket lay against my skin. It felt hot, like a brand. That money was not for us. It was not for a fresh start. It was for me. It was for the woman he had tried to erase. I walked back to the kitchen island and picked up the mail I had ignored. There was a credit card offer, a flyer for a pizza place, and a notice from the water company addressed to occupant. I took a pen from the drawer. On the back of the pizza flyer, I wrote down a sentence. It wasn't a to-do list. It wasn't a reminder. It was a vow. This money will not buy back the man who sold me cheap. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I folded the paper, put it in my pocket, and walked into the living room. Logan, I said. He didn't turn around. Yeah, we need to talk, I said. Turn the TV off. Something in my voice must have pierced through the game because he actually muted the television. He turned to look at me, annoyance flickering in his eyes. Can it wait until halftime? No, I said. It cannot wait. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I didn't hate him anymore. Hate requires energy. Hate implies that he still had power over me. I didn't feel hate. I felt the indifference of a CEO firing an embezzling employee. I'm going to bed, I said calmly. But tomorrow, you need to be home by 6. No clients, no excuses. Why? He asked, frowning. Because the locks are sticking. I lied, testing a new version of it. And I think it's time we fix the house. He shrugged and turned back to the game. Sure, babe, whatever. He had no idea that the fix I was planning involved removing him from the foundation permanently. I walked up the stairs, the winning ticket burning against my heart, knowing that tonight was the last night I would ever sleep under the same roof as a poor woman. Tomorrow, the war would truly begin. Tuesday morning began with a lie. Logan stood by the front door, his leather overnight bag slung over his shoulder, checking his reflection in the hallway. He told me he was flying to Austin for a 3-day tech conference. He said the signal might be spotty. He kissed me on the forehead, a dry, perfunctory peck, and told me not to wait up on Thursday night. I watched through the window as his car backed out of the driveway. I waited until his taillights disappeared around the corner. I waited another 5 minutes, just to be sure. Then I picked up my phone. Do it, I said. Jillian pulled up to the curb 60 seconds later. She wasn't alone. Behind her black sedan was a white van marked Metropolitan Locked and Safe. And behind that, a plain gray SUV containing two men who looked like they used to bounce at very expensive clubs. You have 4 hours before he realizes he forgot his charger. Or Sienna gets bored of him, Jillian said, stepping into the foyer. She dropped her briefcase on the console table with a heavy thud. Let's make them count. The house transformed into a command center. The locksmith, a silent man heavy with tools, went to work on the front door. The sound of the drill grinding into the metal was the most satisfying thing I had heard in years. He wasn't just changing the tumblers. He was installing a high-security electronic deadbolt that could only be opened via an app on my phone. Meanwhile, I went upstairs with a stack of cardboard boxes. I moved through the bedroom like a crime scene cleaner. I opened Logan's closet. The rule I had set for myself was simple. He keeps what he brought into the marriage, and he keeps what he bought with his own money. I packed his cheap polyester blend shirts. I packed the worn-out sneakers. I packed the golf clubs he had bought at a pawn shop 3 years ago. But the Rolex Submariner I had bought him for our second anniversary, that stayed on the dresser. The cashmere sweaters I had purchased for him last Christmas, those went into a donation pile for the shelter. The laptop bag made of Italian leather, that was mine. I stripped the bathroom of his possessions. His razor, his toothbrush, his half-empty bottle of cologne, the one that didn't smell like jasmine, all went into a box marked garage. By noon, the master bedroom looked larger. The air felt cleaner. Cameras are live. One of the security men told Jillian. He pointed to a tablet showing a crisp, wide-angle view of the driveway, the front porch, and the back patio. Good, Jillian said. She looked at me. Now we wait. We didn't have to wait 3 days. We only had to wait 6 hours. At 5:45, my phone buzzed. The motion sensor on the driveway camera tripped. I looked at the screen. Logan's car was pulling in. He wasn't in Austin. He wasn't even at the airport. He was wearing the same clothes he had left in. But his tie was gone, and he looked flustered. He's back, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. Showtime, Jillian said. She sat at the head of the dining table and spread out 3 distinct piles of documents. I watched on the tablet as Logan walked up to the front porch. He looked annoyed, fumbling for his keys. He slid his key into the lock. It didn't turn. He frowned. He pulled it out, looked at it, and shoved it back in. He jiggled it violently. Nothing. He rang the doorbell once, twice. Then he started pounding on the wood. Ava, open the door. The lock is jammed. I pressed the button on the new video intercom system the security team had just mounted. The lock is not jammed, Logan, I said. My voice came out cool, amplified slightly by the speaker. He jumped, looking around for the source of the voice. He stared into the camera lens. Ava, what is going on? My key won't work. I know, I said. You don't live here anymore. He laughed, a nervous, incredulous sound. What are you talking about? Stop playing around. I forgot my presentation slides. Let me in. If you want to talk, I said, come to the back door. The kitchen entrance is unlocked. This is ridiculous. But he stepped off the porch. I walked to the kitchen. Jillian was already seated, her posture perfect, her face a mask of professional indifference. I stood by the island, leaning against the marble. The back door flew open. Logan stormed in, his face red. Ava, seriously, what is the... He stopped. He saw the boxes stacked by the fridge. Then he saw Jillian. Hello, Logan, Jillian said. She didn't smile. Jillian! Logan looked between us, his confusion morphing into defensiveness. What is a divorce lawyer doing in my kitchen? It's not your kitchen, Jillian corrected him. And I am here because you seem to be confused about your marital status. I don't have time for this, Logan snapped. I have a flight to catch. No, you don't, I said. You have a reservation at a bed and breakfast in the city with Sienna Villa. But you can cancel that. You're not going anywhere. Logan froze. The name hung in the air like smoke. Sit down, Jillian commanded. It wasn't a suggestion. Logan pulled out a chair and sat, his eyes darting to the papers on the table. We know, I said. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stated it as a fact. Jillian slid the first file across the table. It was a copy of the divorce decree. You filed for divorce 7 months ago, Jillian said. You forged Ava's signature. You used a corrupt notary to push it through a satellite court. You are legally divorced, which means you have no legal right to be in this house. Logan's face turned color. He opened his mouth to speak, but Jillian slammed her hand down on the second file. This, she said, is a record of the $25,000 credit card you opened in Ava's name last week. That is identity theft. That is wire fraud. She pushed the third file forward. And this is the lease you signed with Ms. Vale. Paid for with money you siphoned from the joint account you were supposedly sharing with your wife. Logan stared at the papers. The silence stretched really tight. He looked at me, his eyes pleading, trying to summon the charm that had worked on me for years. Ava, listen, he started, his voice dropping to that soft, intimate register he used when he wanted forgiveness. It's not what it looks like. The divorce papers, that was just a safeguard. It was a business decision. I was in debt. I was trying to protect you from my creditors. I never meant to leave you. I was going to tear them up once I got back on my feet. You filed them, Jillian said. You cannot tear up a court order that has been finalized for 7 months. It was a mistake, Logan shouted, slamming his hand on the table. I was panic filing. I didn't know it went through. Stop, Jillian cut him off. Her voice was like a whip. Do not insult our intelligence. We have the emails. We have the notary logs. We have the draft of the deed where you tried to transfer this house to your shell company. You are not explaining a mistake, Logan. You are confessing to a felony. Logan slumped back in his chair. The fight went out of him. He looked small. Why? I asked. It was the only thing I really wanted to know. Not the legal reasoning, but the human reason. He looked at me, and for a second, I saw the man I had married. But then his eyes shifted away, unable to hold my gaze. I was stuck, he muttered. I was drowning in that house flip. I needed cash. I needed a way out. Sienna, she has connections. She has money. I just needed time to fix things. I was going to pay you back. You were going to steal my house, I said. You were going to ruin my credit. You were going to leave me with nothing. I was going to fix it, he insisted, his voice whining now. I just needed a few more months. You don't have months, Jillian said. She slid a pen and a single document across the table. What is this? Logan asked, eyeing the paper suspiciously. This is a settlement agreement, Jillian said. It confirms that you and Ava have been separated since October, matching the date of your fraudulent divorce decree. It states that you waive all claims to any assets acquired by Ava after that date. It grants her full ownership of this house and absolves her of any debts incurred by you. Logan laughed bitterly. Why would I sign that? I can just go to court. If the divorce is fake, then we're still married. Half the house is mine. If you go to court, Jillian said, checking her watch, I will hand this entire file to the district attorney. We have proof of forgery, identity theft, and bank fraud. That is 5 to 10 years in federal prison. You will lose your consulting license. You will lose your reputation. And Sienna, she will be dragged into it as an accomplice because her name is on the lease paid for with stolen funds. Logan looked at the door. He looked at the boxes. He looked at me. Ava, he said, please, we can work this out. We're husband and wife. No, I said. According to you, we have been strangers for 7 months. Jillian tapped the paper. You have 2 choices, Logan. Option A, you sign this paper, you take your boxes, and you walk out the back door. We do not press charges, and you get to keep your freedom. Option B, you refuse, and my security team calls the police. They are on speed dial, and the station is 10 minutes away. Logan looked at the pen. His hand was shaking. He looked at the credit card evidence. He knew he was cornered. He picked up the pen. He didn't read the document. He just signed it. He scrawled his name quickly, angrily, the ink tearing through the paper slightly. There, he spat. Are you happy? Jillian snatched the paper away and checked the signature. Very. Get out, I said. Logan stood up. He grabbed the handle of his suitcase. He looked at me one last time, hatred burning in his eyes. "You're going to regret this," he said. "You can't survive without me." I almost laughed. I thought about the ticket in my bra. I thought about the $640 million that belonged to me and only me, thanks to the paper he had just signed. "I think I'll be just fine," I said. "Goodbye, Logan." He turned and walked out the back door, the screen slamming shut behind him. I watched him drag his boxes down the driveway to his car. Jillian let out a long breath and slumped slightly in her chair. That went well. I walked to the door and locked it. I engaged the deadbolt. I looked at the empty spot where his things used to be. "Is it done?" I asked. "The separation is codified," Jillian said. "He just signed away his rights to your future. Legally, he is gone." I nodded. I didn't feel happy yet. I didn't feel safe yet. But for the first time in 7 months, I felt like I owned my own life. "Now," I said, turning back to the kitchen, "let's call the locksmith back. I want the back door changed, too." The silence in the house was supposed to be the sound of victory. For 3 days, I had walked through the rooms, reclaiming the space. I drank my coffee on the patio without hearing Logan's complaints about the humidity. I slept in the middle of the king-sized bed. I had the locks changed, the security system updated, and the lottery ticket safely locked in a safety deposit box at a bank across town that Logan did not know existed. I thought the war was over. I thought I had won because I held the high ground in the settlement agreement. I was wrong. The war had just moved underground. It started with a knock on the door on Friday morning. Not a friend, not a neighbor, but a courier holding a thick, rigid envelope. He didn't ask for Ava Turner. He asked for the tenant in possession. I signed for it, my stomach tightening. The return address was Apex Asset Management, a company I had never heard of. I ripped the tab on the envelope, standing right there in the foyer. Inside was a letter printed on heavy, official bond paper. "Dear resident, this letter serves as formal notification that the property located at my address is now under the management of Apex Asset Management, acting on behalf of the owner, Stonerist Holdings, LLC. Please be advised that an inspection of the premises is scheduled for next Tuesday to assess the condition of the asset prior to potential listing or lease renegotiation. Please contact us immediately to set up your rent payment portal." I read the paragraph twice, then a third time. Rent payment portal. I own this house. I had the deed. I had the mortgage statements. I had paid the property taxes 3 months ago. I ran to my home office and logged into the county clerk's online portal. I had checked it weeks ago when this nightmare started, and it had been clean. But real estate records operate on a lag. There's a gap between when a document is submitted and when it is indexed. I typed in my address. The search wheel spun for an agonizing 5 seconds. Owner of record, Stonecrest Holdings, LLC. Date recorded, 3 days ago. I felt the blood drain from my face. I clicked on the document image. It was a quitclaim deed. It transferred the property from Ava Turner to Stonerist Holdings, LLC for the sum of $10. And at the bottom, there was my signature. Again, this was not the draft I had seen on his laptop. This was a finalized, stamped, recorded legal instrument. He had not just planned to steal my house. He had executed the theft the very morning I kicked him out while I was packing his boxes. The county clerk was stamping his fraud. I drove to Jillian's office like a maniac, running 2 red lights. I burst into her conference room without knocking. She was in a meeting with a junior associate, but one look at my face and she waved him out. He sold it. I choked out, throwing the Apex letter onto the glass table. He sold my house to a shell company. Jillian snatched the letter. Her eyes scanned it, narrowing into slits. She turned to her computer and started typing furiously. "He didn't sell it," she said, her voice tight with controlled rage. "He transferred it. There's a difference, but the effect is catastrophic if we don't move fast." She pulled up the deed on her large monitor. "Look at the notary stamp." I leaned in. State of New York, County of Westchester. The same notary from the divorce papers. The date of the signature was backdated to 6 months ago, creating a paper trail that claimed I had signed the house over to his company long before our separation. "Here's his play," Jillian said, standing up and pacing the room. "He knew you might find out about the divorce. He knew you might kick him out. So he planted a landmine by transferring the title to Stonecrest. He has created a cloud on the title. Legally, Right now, the county thinks a limited liability company owns your home. Can he kick me out? I asked, my voice trembling. He can try, Jillian said. But the bigger danger is that Stonerist could sell the house to a third party, an innocent buyer. If that happens, getting the house back becomes a nightmare of litigation that could take years. Or he could take out a mortgage against the property, drain the equity, and leave you with the debt. He's trying to leverage me, I realized. He wants me to call him. He wants me to beg. He wants me to trade money for my own home. Exactly, Jillian said. He wants a settlement. He wants you to pay him to sign the house back to you. She hit a button on her intercom. Get the paralegals in here now. We need to file an emergency injunction and a lease pendens immediately. She looked at me. A lease pendens is a notice of pendency. It's a public notice filed with the county that says, essentially, this property is the subject of a lawsuit. Do not touch it. It burns the title. No bank will lend on it. No buyer will touch it. We are going to freeze that house so solid he cannot even give it away. Do it, I said. But that's just the civil side, Jillian said grimly. We're going to do something else. We're going to file an affidavit of forgery with the recorder of deeds and the district attorney. My phone rang. It was Monica. Speaker, Jillian commanded. I put the phone on the table. Monica, you're on with Jillian. Please tell me you have something. I found your notary, Monica's voice crackled. The guy who stamped the deed and the divorce papers. His name is Arthur P. Miller. He runs a shipping and document storefront in a strip mall 3 towns over. But here's the kicker. Arthur P. Miller died 4 years ago. The room went silent. Excuse me, Jillian asked. The son runs the shop, Monica explained. He kept the stamp. He's been notarizing documents for cash under his dead father's name. It's a ghost stamp. He charges $500 a pop for no appearance notarizations. I have him on video accepting an envelope from a guy who matches Logan's description last Tuesday morning. That's it, Jillian said, slamming her hand on the desk. That is the nail in the coffin. Wait, there's more, Monica said. I tracked the funding for Stonerist Holdings. The bank account for the LLC was opened with a deposit from a joint savings account. Your joint savings account, Ava. But the operating capital? It's coming from a hard money lender who thinks Logan owns the house free and clear. He has already applied for a $200,000 loan against the property. He's cashing out, I whispered. He's trying to strip the equity before the ink dries. Jillian's fingers flew across her keyboard. Not on my watch. I'm calling the judge. We're getting an ex parte order. That means we go in without Logan being there because there's an immediate threat of irreparable harm. We're stopping that loan. I sat back in the leather chair, feeling a cold resolve settle over me. Logan wasn't just a bad husband. He wasn't just a cheater. He was a criminal. He had looked at the home where we had built a life, the home I had paid for with my late father's inheritance, and saw nothing but a piggy bank to smash open. He wanted to leave me with nothing. He wanted me to wake up one morning with eviction papers and a drained bank account while he lived off my equity with Sienna. Jillian, I said quietly. She stopped typing and looked at me. Yes. When we file these papers, I said, do not just file to get the house back. What do you mean? I mean, I want to press charges, I said. I don't want a settlement. I don't want him to just sign a paper and walk away like we did on Tuesday. This is forgery. This is wire fraud. This is identity theft involving a deceased notary public. Jillian's face softened, then hardened into a look of fierce approval. If we go down this road, Ava, it's not a divorce anymore. It is a prosecution. He could go to prison. And Sienna, if she's listed as an officer of that LLC, or if she knowingly benefited, she goes down too. I thought about the letter from Apex Asset Management. I thought about the tenant label. I thought about the sheer entitlement of a man who believed he could rewrite reality with a stolen stamp. He set a trap for me, I said. He planted a landmine in my life, hoping I would step on it and blow up. I'm just returning the favor. Okay, Jillian said. She picked up the phone. I'll call the DA's fraud unit after we file the injunction. By 5 o'clock today, Stonerist Holdings will be toxic waste, and Logan Turner will be a person of interest. I stood up. I felt lighter than I had in months. The fear of losing the house was gone, replaced by the certainty of retribution. He wanted a fight, I said, looking at the fraudulent deed on the screen one last time. He just didn't realize he picked a fight with someone who has nothing left to lose and 600 million reasons to win. The rumor mill in our county did not just whisper, it screamed. Even though Jillian and Diane had set up the blind trust to claim the prize, small towns have a way of connecting dots. A clerk at the gas station remembered my face. A bank teller noticed the sudden flurry of high-level legal activity around my accounts. It only took 3 days for the whispers to turn into a roar, and for that roar to reach the ears of the man who was currently sleeping on a friend's couch. My phone, which had been blissfully silent since I changed my number, started lighting up again. Logan had found the new number. I made a huge mistake. Please, Ava, just 5 minutes. I'm outside. I just want to see your face. He called 12 times in 1 hour. I watched the screen light up, feeling nothing but a cold, detached curiosity. It was fascinating to watch a man who had spent 7 months erasing me suddenly decide I was the most important person in the world. At 6 p.m, the gate buzzer sounded. I sat in the kitchen with Jillian. We had been expecting this. In fact, we had bet on it. Jillian had guessed he would show up by Friday. I had bet on Thursday. I won. I tapped the intercom screen. There he was, standing at the newly installed security gate at the end of the driveway. He looked disheveled. He was wearing a wrinkled shirt. His hair was unkempt, and he was holding a bouquet of flowers that looked like they had been bought at a grocery store discount bin. He brought hydrangeas, I said, shaking my head. He knows I hate hydrangeas. I pressed the talk button. Go away, Logan. He jumped, looking up at the camera lens mounted on the stone pillar. He put on a face that I recognized instantly. It was his puppy dog look, the one he used when he forgot an anniversary or spent too much money on golf clubs. Ava, he said, his voice cracking with performed emotion. Baby, please open the gate. We need to talk. I've been going out of my mind. There's nothing to talk about, I said. You signed the settlement. You took your boxes. You are done. I was confused, he shouted, stepping closer to the camera. I was scared about the debt. Ava, I pushed you away because I was trying to save us. But I realized I can't live without you. I miss my wife. I miss my family. I looked at Jillian. She rolled her eyes, so hard I thought they might get stuck. You missed the $640 million, I said flatly. The silence on the other end was telling. He didn't deny it immediately. He blinked, shifting his weight. This is not about money, he lied. I didn't even know for sure until today. But now that I know, Ava, think about what we could do. We could fix everything. We could travel. We could buy the lake house we always talked about. We're a team. We always have been. We ceased to be a team, I reminded him, on October 14th, the day you forged my signature on a divorce decree. That was a formality, he argued, his desperation rising. It was just paper. In my heart, I never left you. But in your bed, you made room for Sienna. I shot back. His face hardened. The mask of the repentant husband slipped, revealing the greedy, panicked man underneath. He threw the flowers on the ground. Open the gate, Ava, he demanded. We need to discuss the division of assets. There are no assets to divide, I said. You are trespassing. The ticket was purchased in May, Logan said. His voice was cold now. Precise. He had clearly spoken to a lawyer, or at least an old one. The divorce decree, the one you say is fake, was dated October. But we were living together as man and wife when you bought that ticket. That makes it marital property, community property. Half of that ticket is mine. Jillian leaned over and pressed the button. Hello, Logan. This is Jillian. Logan flinched. You put her up to this. Actually, Jillian said, her voice smooth and dangerous. I'm just here to remind you of the document you signed 3 days ago. Do you remember the separation and settlement agreement? I signed that under duress. Logan screamed. You signed it to avoid immediate arrest for felony fraud, Jillian corrected. And in that document, specifically in Clause 4, Section B, you explicitly waive any and all claims to assets held by Ava Turner, known or unknown, past or future, in exchange for her assuming sole ownership of the residence and holding you harmless for the mortgage. You traded your rights to her future for a get-out-of-jail-free card on the house theft. You signed away the lottery ticket to keep from being handcuffed in your own kitchen. That agreement is void. Logan yelled. I'll sue. I'll drag this out for years. I'll freeze that money until you're both old and gray. And while you're doing that, I added, Jillian will be handing the file on the notary fraud and the identity theft to the district attorney. The moment you file a lawsuit claiming you are my husband, you admit that the divorce was forged. You admit to the crime. You are checkmated, Logan. If you sue for the money, you go to prison. If you walk away, you stay poor, but you stay free. He kicked the gate. The metal rattled, but it held firm. I'll go to the press, he threatened, pointing a shaking finger at the camera. I'll tell them everything. I'll tell them you stole the winning ticket from our shared budget. I'll paint you as the greedy wife who kicked her husband out the second she got rich. I'll ruin your reputation. Go ahead, I said. Tell them. Call the news stations, but make sure you tell them about the ghost notary. Make sure you tell them about the $25,000 credit card you opened in my name. Because if you tell your story, I will publish the evidence file. Let's see who the public hates more. The woman who won the lottery, or the man who tried to steal her identity. He stood there panting, his chest heaving. He looked at the house he had tried to steal, the house that now contained a fortune he would never touch, and let out a scream of pure frustration. Then he turned, got into his car, and peeled away, tires screeching. He's not done, Jillian said quietly. He's desperate. Let him scream, I said. He's a ghost, but the real entertainment was yet to come. Later that night, as I was scrolling through my phone, a notification popped up. It was from a local gossip account. Influencer Sienna Vale breaks silence on breakup with local businessman. I clicked the link. It was a video of Sienna sitting on the floor of a sparsely furnished apartment, wearing no makeup, looking artfully tragic. She was crying. I just wanted to come on here and speak my truth, she sniffed, wiping a tear. I've been seeing a lot of hate comments. People saying I'm a homewrecker, but I didn't know. I was a victim, too. Logan told me he was divorced. He showed me the papers. He told me his ex-wife was crazy and abusive. I watched, feeling a spike of anger, but then she kept talking. We have been planning our life together since January. Sienna sobbed. He promised me that once the house transfer went through in March, we would have a fresh start. I invested my own money into our future because I believed in him. I froze. Jillian, who was sitting next to me, gasped. Did she just say January? Jillian asked. She did, I said, a smile spreading across my face. And did she say she knew about the house transfer? She sure did. Sienna had just handed us the final weapon. By admitting they had been planning their life since January, she proved that the relationship and the conspiracy to hide assets predated the lottery win by months. She proved that the divorce was a calculated move to strip assets. And she admitted to having financial knowledge of the fraudulent transfer. But the comment section was even better. The internet is a cruel place, and they had caught the contradiction instantly. User 1. Wait, if you knew about the house transfer, why didn't you check the deed? User 2. You said he showed you divorce papers in January, but the court records show the decree wasn't even filed until October. You're lying. User 3. So you were dating him while his wife was paying the mortgage? Girl, you're not a victim. You are an accomplice. Sienna was trying to play the innocent victim to save her brand, but she had just set fire to her own credibility. She had confirmed the timeline of the affair and the fraud. She just corroborated our entire case. Jillian said, laughing in disbelief. She was trying to distance herself from him, but she just tied herself to the anchor. I watched the view count on the video climb. Logan was out there somewhere, watching this too. He had lost his wife. He had lost the money. And now the woman he had burned his life down for was throwing him under the bus and accidentally confessing to their crimes in real time. Do you want to report the video? Jillian asked. No, I said, locking my phone screen. Save it. Download it. It's the best piece of evidence we have ever received. I walked to the window and looked out at the empty driveway. The hydrangeas were still lying there, crushed on the asphalt. He asked if I remembered us. I whispered to the glass. I remember everything. That's exactly why he's never getting back in. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. A windowless box of blonde wood and beige carpet that smelled faintly of floor polish and anxiety. It didn't look like the place where my life would be decided, but the air was thick with a tension that made my skin crawl. I sat on the right side of the aisle, Jillian next to me, her posture like a steel beam, rigid and unyielding. On the other side sat Logan. He was wearing his client meeting suit, navy blue, perfectly tailored, and he was whispering furiously to his lawyer, a man named Mr. Vance, who had a smile that didn't reach his eyes. They had filed a motion claiming that the lottery ticket was community property. Their argument was simple and insidious, because the divorce papers Logan had filed were technically fraudulent and therefore legally void. We were still married. And since we were still married, half of $640 million belonged to him. Mr. Vance stood up, buttoning his jacket. Your Honor, he began, his voice smooth as oil. The facts are not in dispute. And Mrs. Turner shared a home, a bed, and a life until just a few days ago. The lottery ticket in question was purchased with funds from their joint household budget. The plaintiff's attempt to use a clerical error in a previous filing to disenfranchise my client is a transparent grasp for me. He paused for dramatic effect. My client made a mistake with paperwork. Yes, but he never intended to leave his wife. They were a family, and in this state, a family shares its fortune. I felt a surge of nausea. He was painting Logan as a confused husband who just happened to accidentally forge a divorce. Jillian did not object. She waited. When the judge, a stern woman named Judge Hollowell, who peered over her spectacles with hawk-like intensity, nodded at us, Jillian stood up. She did not use flowery language. She did not raise her voice. She simply walked to the center of the room, carrying a 3-inch binder. Your Honor, Jillian said, we are not here to debate the philosophy of marriage. We are here to discuss the timeline of criminal intent. The defense claims Mr. Turner made a clerical error. We intend to prove that Mr. Turner engaged in a systematic conspiracy to defraud his wife, the state, and the banking system. Jillian placed the binder on the judge's bench. Exhibit A, she said. The divorce decree filed in October. The notary stamp belongs to Arthur P. Miller. Mr. Miller died 4 years ago. We have a sworn affidavit from the son who illegally sold the use of the stamp to Mr. Turner for $500. Logan shifted in his seat. Mr. Vance stopped smiling. Exhibit B. Jillian continued. Her pace relentless. A credit card application submitted last week in the name of Ava Turner. The IP address traces back to Mr. Turner's private office. The mailing address is a P.O. box registered to a shell company. This is not a clerical error. Your Honor, this is identity theft in the first degree. Judge Hollowell flipped through the pages, her frown deepening. Mr. Vance, do you have an explanation for why your client was opening credit lines in his wife's name while simultaneously claiming they were a happy couple? Vance stood up, stammering. Your Honor, these are separate issues. We are here to discuss the lottery ticket. They are the same issue, Jillian cut in. They establish intent. Mr. Turner divorced his wife on paper to protect himself from debt, while keeping her in the dark to exploit her credit. He wanted the benefits of being single and the benefits of being married without the obligations of either. Then came the kill shot. But, Your Honor, Jillian said, turning to look directly at Logan. The most damning evidence is not what Mr. Turner did. It is why he did it. Jillian pulled up a projection on the courtroom screen. It was a series of recovered text messages. Monica, our private investigator, had pulled a miracle out of the digital ether. She had found a backup of Logan's chats that had not been fully deleted from the cloud. These are messages between Mr. Turner and Miss Sienna Vale, dated January of this year, Jillian said. I read the text on the screen. Asterisk Sienna, did you file the papers yet? My broker says we can't put the new condo in my name until your debt is legally detached from her. I'm not risking my credit score for a flip. Asterisk, asterisk, Logan. I'm doing it today. I found a guy who will stamp it without her knowing. Just be patient. Asterisk, asterisk, Sienna, do it. Once you're legally single, we can transfer your assets to the LLC and leave her with the mortgage. I looked at Logan. His face had gone the color of ash. He was staring at the screen, his mouth slightly open. He hadn't known we had this. But more importantly, he hadn't realized what it meant. He was not the mastermind, Jillian said. her voice dropping to a conversational volume that carried more weight than a scream. He was being directed. Ms. Vale manipulated Mr. Turner into filing the fraudulent divorce to clear the path for her own real estate ambitions. Mr. Turner was not a confused husband trying to save his marriage. He was a man discarding his wife because his mistress told him it was the only way to secure a new lease. Logan looked down at his hands. He looked humiliated. The narrative of the business genius protecting his family had just shattered. He was just a pawn who had been played by a 24-year-old influencer. Judge Hollowell closed the binder with a heavy thud. She took off her glasses and looked at Mr. Vance. Counsel, the judge said. Her voice was ice cold. I am looking at evidence of forgery of court documents, perjury, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. This is not a family court matter anymore. Your Honor, if we could just recess to discuss a settlement, Vance began, sweat visible on his forehead. No, Judge Hollowell interrupted. I am denying your motion to claim the lottery assets. The court finds that Mr. Turner voluntarily severed the marital economic community in October when he filed that decree. Regardless of its fraudulent nature, he cannot benefit from his own crime. He is stopped from claiming he is a husband when it suits his wallet. She turned to the bailiff. Furthermore, I am ordering the clerk to seal these exhibits and transfer them immediately to the district attorney's office. I am recommending a full criminal investigation into Mr. Turner and Ms. Vale regarding the falsification of public records. The gavel banged down. It sounded like a gunshot. Adjourned. The room erupted into movement. Mr. Vance was frantically packing his briefcase, refusing to look at his client. Logan sat frozen, staring at the space where the judge had been. He wasn't just broke. He was a target. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Let's go, Jillian. We walked down the center aisle. As we reached the heavy double doors, I heard footsteps behind me. Ava! It was a whisper, hoarse and desperate. I turned around. Logan was standing there. The arrogance was gone. The charm was gone. He looked like a man who had just watched his own funeral. His eyes were red and his hands were shaking uncontrollably. Ava! He said again, stepping closer. Please, you can't let them take this to the DA. Prison. I can't do prison. It will kill me. I looked at him. I remember the way he used to look at me when we were dating. Full of promise. I remember the way he looked at me the night he came home smelling of jasmine. Full of lies. I am not the one sending you to prison, Logan, I said. You can stop it, he begged. He reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. Tell the judge you want to drop it. Tell them we worked it out. I'll sign anything. I'll sign the house over. I'll leave town. I'll never speak to you again. Just don't let them lock me up. He was crying now. Actual tears were tracking down his cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just got lost. Please, Ava, for the sake of what we had. I looked at Jillian. She stood silently, letting me handle this. I thought about the night I found the divorce papers. I thought about the credit card he opened in my name. I thought about the text messages where he and Sienna discussed leaving me with the mortgage, like I was trash to be taken out. He wasn't sorry he hurt me. He was sorry he got caught. You want me to save you? I asked softly. Yes, he sobbed, nodding vigorously. Please. You filed the papers, Logan, I said. My voice was steady, devoid of anger, devoid of love. It was just the truth. You forged the signature. You stamped the seal. You set the machine in motion. I turned toward the door. You signed the ending a long time ago, I said. I'm just reading it out loud. I pushed the doors open and walked out into the hallway, the bright lights of the courthouse corridor blinding me for a second. Behind me, I heard Logan sink to the floor. But I did not look back. I had a check to cash and a life to start. The sound of a pen scratching against paper in a quiet room is usually insignificant. But in that sterile conference room, 3 days after the court hearing, it sounded like the loudest noise in the world. It was the sound of Logan Turner signing away his life. He sat across the mahogany table, looking nothing like the confident man who had walked out on me months ago. His suit was unpressed, his eyes were rimmed with red exhaustion, and his hands shook as he moved the pen across the signature line. Jillian stood over him, watching every stroke like a hawk watching a mouse. That is the last one, Jillian said, pulling the document away the moment the ink was dry. This was the global settlement agreement. In exchange for me not pursuing a civil lawsuit for emotional damages and fraud, Logan agreed to 3 things. First, he formally withdrew his petition for a share of the lottery winnings, acknowledging legally that the ticket was my sole and separate property. Second, he signed a confession regarding the fraudulent transfer of my home, rendering the deed to Stonerist Holdings null and void. And third, he signed a permanent restraining order. He was never to contact me, come near my property, or speak my name in public again. It's done, Logan whispered. He looked up at me, a flicker of hope in his eyes. So we're good? You're going to tell the DA to back off. I looked at him, feeling a profound sense of detachment. He still didn't get it. He thought this was a transaction. He thought he could trade a signature for immunity. I promised I would drop the civil suit, Logan, I said calmly. And I have. I am not suing you for the money you stole from our joint account. But the criminal charges, he pressed, sweat beading on his forehead. The identity theft, the notary fraud, you said. I said I would not file charges personally. I corrected him. But I cannot stop the district attorney. The evidence is already in their system. The judge sent it over. Forgery of court documents is a crime against the state, not just against me. I am just a witness now. Logan's face crumbled. He realized then that he had signed away his claim to $600 million for a safety raft that had already sunk. You tricked me, he hissed. No, I said, standing up and smoothing my dress. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own actions. There's a difference. The weeks that followed were a slow-motion car crash that I watched from a safe distance. Without the shield of my silence, Logan's life disintegrated with terrifying speed. The state licensing board suspended his consulting license, pending the investigation into his financial fraud. When his clients found out he was being investigated for identity theft and falsifying public records, they dropped him overnight. He went from being a rising star in management consulting to unhireable. The debts he had tried to hide by divorcing me, the hard money loans, the failed flip, the leverage, came crashing down. Creditors seized his car. He was evicted from the apartment he had been crashing in. The last I heard, he was living in a motel on the outskirts of town. The kind of place that rented rooms by the hour. Sienna Vale fared no better. The investigation into the ghost notary widened to include everyone who had knowingly benefited from the fraud. Because her name was on the lease paid for with stolen funds, and because her own text messages proved she knew about the scheme, she was named as a co-conspirator. Her downfall was digital and brutal. The internet detectives dissected her life, her sponsors, the tea companies, the fashion brands, the skincare lines, dropped her within 24 hours. She tried to pivot, posting tearful videos about being manipulated by an older man. But the screenshots of her urging Logan to leave me with a mortgage were reposted in every comment section. Her perfect life was exposed as a mirage built on theft. She deleted her accounts 2 weeks later, vanishing into the obscurity she deserved. As for the house, the legal cleanup was swift. With the injunction and Logan's confession, the county clerk expunged the fraudulent deed. Stonerist Holdings LLC was dissolved. The title was returned to my name, clean and unblemished. I stood in my kitchen the day the final deed arrived in the mail. I ran my hand over the granite countertop where I had found the lottery ticket. I looked out at the backyard where Logan used to grill burgers and lie to my face. I sold the house 3 days later. I didn't want the memories. I didn't want the ghosts. I bought a smaller place, a cottage near the coast with big windows and no history. I did not buy a yacht. I did not buy a private jet. I sat down with Diane Klein, my financial advisor, and we set up the Turner Initiative. It wasn't a flashy charity. It was a scholarship and grant fund specifically designed for women over 30 who needed to restart their careers after divorce or domestic financial abuse. We paid for nursing degrees, coding boot camps, and paralegal certifications. We paid for daycare so they could go to class. I also sent a check to the corporate center where I used to work, specifically to the HR department. I donated enough to upgrade their entire computer system with a specific note that the spousal verification software should be updated to prevent errors. It was my little inside joke. 6 months after the court date, a letter arrived at my PO box. The handwriting was
โอ้ทะเล
familiar,
น่าจะได้ดิน
though
ได้วะ
shakier than
โอ้
I
ทะเล
had.
น่าจะได้ดินได้วะ
I sat on the porch of my new house, the
เด็กมัน
ocean
ไม่ได้
breeze
ชิ
tangling
วิ
my
ของน้ำไม่รู้
hair.
กัน
I opened it.
โอ้ทะเลน่าจะ
Dear
ได้ดินได้วะ
Ava,
โอ้
I
ก็
am
มึงไป
writing
นิว
this
กั
from
น
the
จ้ะ
Crime Detention
นี่
Center.
ดันน่าเตะ
My lawyer says I might get out in 18 months with good behavior. I've had a lot of time to think in here. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. The money changed things. Before that, we were good. I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I just want my friend back. Always, Logan. I read the letter twice. He still didn't get it. He thought the money was the wedge between us. He didn't understand that the money hadn't changed me. It had just given me the light to see him clearly. He wasn't sorry he broke my heart. He was sorry he was in a cell while I was free. I didn't cry. I didn't feel a pang of longing. I felt light. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. I didn't burn it. That would be too dramatic. I didn't tear it up. That would imply emotion. I simply walked inside and dropped it into the recycling bin, right on top of a flyer for a pizza place. Then I walked back out to the porch. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the satire. For 7 months, I had been holding my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting to be caught, waiting to be erased. But I was still here. I had won. Not because I had $600 million in the bank, though that certainly helped, but because I had woken up. Logan had tried to sell me for a discount, and in the process, he had taught me exactly what I was worth. I closed my eyes and smiled. The sun felt warm on my face. It was a beautiful day to be rich, free, and single. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know what you think of Logan's karma and what you would have done in my place. So please, drop a comment below. If you connected with the story, please subscribe to Olivia Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that bell button so more people can hear about how the truth always wins in the end.